Hello everyone, and welcome to the pre-Clash stream, where we're going to talk about where we are, basically, in terms of where the teams that are going to the Clash are, where I think the meta is likely to go, not just based on hero buffs that have happened recently or Stukov being available to play, but introductions and talking about specific teams' hero pools. So the teams that are going to the Western Clash are, of course, there's 8 of them. There are 3. Hey, Xanax. There's 3 from North America, 3 from EU, 1 from Australia, New Zealand, and 1 from Latin America. Fnatic is the number 1 seed from EU, and they'll be going up against Latin America Team Red Canids in round 1. Tempo Storm and Team Liquid will be going up against each other in the next match. Gale Force versus Nomia. Gale Force is from an A. Nomia is, of course, from Sergeant Shane 89. Thank you for the sub. Nomia is, of course, from Australia, New Zealand, and they are the team that made waves by almost taking out Team Liquid at the previous Brawl. Nomia has actually always performed fairly well at Brawls. A big reason that they've always performed fairly well at international events is they are by far the best team in their region. No one even comes close in the Australia New Zealand to the level of the Nomia players. They could probably move to a major HGC region and be an HGC team if that's something they wanted to seriously consider. But they're very good, and they always do surprisingly well at international events. Primarily because they always have their own draft style, and they always stick to it. They only play what they've practiced, which is a really, really good idea for a team. And then Team Expert versus Team Freedom. Another EU-NA matchup. Aaron Carr from Nomia is moving to UK. Wow. Then I actually didn't know that, but yeah, I would not be surprised at all if that ended up... if players from there ended up being on HGC teams in major regions. Definitely something they could do. And I'm going to ask Chad a question before I go any further. Do you guys know a bracket website where I can, Tarantula Hots, thank you for the follow, where I can, make a bracket? Because I want to have a bracket where I make predictions. And I'm like, Fnatic's going to go 3-0, and then I can, knock Fnatic up, and we see... I'm going to make... I make private predictions a lot of the time, and I do it, pen and paper, but I want to make a public prediction and see how close I ended up being. If anyone knows a bracket site like that, let me know. Challenge? Okay. So I've used Challenge before. How do you... Can you move... You can't move people around in the brackets afterwards, though. How do I make sure that they're in the right order? Let me... Brackify? See if this works. How many people are in this bracket? 8. Next step. Can make an MS Paint file? I could. I actually thought of this idea, literally as I was loading the stream up. And so I was like, it would have been really great to have that ready to go in advance, but this will have to do. Alright. How do I make this a loser's bracket? I don't see how to make Brackify a loser's bracket. I can load this back up. Maybe I'm missing something obvious. I don't know, I thought it would be fun, but It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So Challenge was the other option that was talked about, and this is the bracket generator for Challenge. How do I make? Can I just add teams now? Oh, maybe this will work. So I can go Fnatic. Is it Car? It's Kenned's. Hey, Mokri. Yeah, I thought this would be fun. If it's really boring watching me set it up, I apologize. Tempo Storm. Team Liquid. Is Gale Force versus Nomia? Nomia. And then the last two teams are Expert and Freedom. The two teams going up against each other. I feel like this is being clowned right now. Probably. Okay, that didn't work. Well, I just said it was it just said 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we get a formatting highlights montage? No. So Fnatic is the #1 seed, so Red needs to be the #8 seed for this to make sense bracket-wise. I was hoping that was just the order. Again, you should probably know how to do this. Okay. Hey, Drink and Run. So, hey, Kala. Kala, I thought you were working. Are you watching the stream at work? You're watching the stream at work. You totally are. Maybe I should just give up. Maybe that's just not a good idea. Maybe that's just the way it is. Alright, maybe I'll make a bracket later. Alright. Should be GFE 2, Team Liquid 3, Tempo 4, Freedom 6, Nomius. Wait, what was Expert? Expert's 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See if that goes to the right bracket. Fnatic versus... No, it doesn't. It's Fnatic, still Fnatic versus Freedom. Team Expert not capitalized. Team Expert's capitalized. It's right there. Or you mean it's not supposed to be capitalized? I guess it's not supposed to be capitalized. You're correct. Alright. I give up. I give up on the bracket idea. I'll do the bracket later. I apologize to everyone who was excited about the bracket idea. I was excited about the bracket idea. I can't believe there's not a way of manually doing this. Like... That seems ridiculous to me. Alright, let's try this one more time. Fnatic. GFE. I know exactly what's wrong. Team Liquid. Tempo Storm. Team Expert. Team Freedom. Nomia. Alright, so it's not Liquid versus Freedom though, so I need to swap. I wish it didn't have the grabby hand. It has a grabby hand, but I can't. So if I swap Liquid and Expert, it should be right. Fnatic versus Candidates, Tempo Storm versus Team Liquid, GFE versus Nomia, Expert versus Freedom. Yeah, we got it. We got it. All right. So this is going to be our example bracket. This is going to be our example bracket. First thing I want to do is go over each of the individual teams with the data that we have available. Right? And talk a little bit about hero pools and map preferences for the teams based on available data. Obviously, for the minor regions teams, this is going to be a little bit more limited. Excuse me. But you can start to see a pretty clear trend, and then we can talk about, shouldn't Team Liquid be seeded over Expert 2 to head-to-head? I just got the bracket right. We can go look at the score if you want to and figure that out. So Nomia or Red Canyons does not actually have a limited hero, that limited a hero pool. Jay Schritt is just very focused in the way he drafts. He's the captain of Red Canyons. And in some cases, they've had to pick up players who could only play a couple of heroes. And they've been forced to center their drafts around that specifically. So I don't expect Red Canyons to do well going up against Fnatic in particular. Fnatic is obviously the number one seed. Unless they pull out some kind of cheese strategies, but they've never done that. The Red Canyons have literally never been in a situation where they're just like, we're just going to put these things out. Hot Mara is no longer a member of Red Canyons. It won't be updated until they do the Clash, because Master League does not get the replays from the minor region qualifiers. They don't have connections to the players or the casters for those events. They wish they did, and they just don't. For the record, if anyone knows anyone in the Australian, New Zealand, or Latin America scenes who are players or casters and they would like to submit the replays, they can contact Slapjack, who is a regular member on Discord, and make that connection. He would be very, very happy with you. Shout out to Master League and all the good work they do. So, there's not that much data on the minor region teams. And the heroes that we see them play, they're not exactly ever off meta, even though sometimes they are a little bit niche. And I don't expect them to pull out anything like crazy. You're not going to see them bamboozle Fnatic in the draft. So this is probably going to be a 3-0. Latin America traditionally is the weakest region of the minor regions, and it's just the weakest region. Period. You can see their match record at events is not exactly fantastic. They literally don't win games. They actually usually the match that's closest is the one that they use to get into clashes in the first place. The Latin America scene is competitive at its high end in terms of teams being relatively even with each other, but they're just not ready for the international scene. And because Jay Schritt has been putting a big emphasis on streaming lately, because he makes more money streaming than he does doing events, it obviously makes a lot more sense for him as long as he's still the top team in Latin America. I don't expect that to change. The only way I expect Latin America players to break out is if they actually move and try to become players on HGC major players in a major region for HGC. How do I edit the bracket? I don't actually have a challenge account. For anyone who I do have a challenge account. No, never mind. But I don't remember the password for it. So forgot password. Lord Vu just subscribed. Thank you for the sub. Yeah, I actually do have and I know I have it too. I actually I did a Hearthstone tournament once that I organized, and that's why I have a challenge account. So production value is just obviously off the charts here. How do I get back to the bracket? There it is. Tournament is started. So our bracket. So report scores. Fnatic 3 and 0. Fnatic advances. Hearthstone tournament. Yeah. To be honest, passes Brain Dead Hero, people playing because they can't play harder heroes, no Kappa. Old TAS, I think, was a little bit easier than new tasks, but TAS has never been like the most difficult hero in the world, especially when you're talking about competitive play. There's a reason that teams just always feel comfortable drafting Tassadar, because literally any of their backline players can just like play TAS. If you're already good at like situational awareness and hitting your E button really fast, then I know who he is. I've seen the Sots logs. I know who he is. But TAS is just not that hard to play. And he was even easier when Prescience was a talent. So. I don't know why, but it just doesn't click at all. In my experience, if you can't play TAS, it's because you try to stutter step. You just gotta like set up as TAS and be like, either I'm attacking or I'm not, and I'm just like moving away. And that's different from other heroes. The only other hero who's even close to equivalent is Tychus and Zarya, right? Either you're moving or you're attacking. You're never really stutter stepping. And TAS is like the extreme version of that. Most common mistake I see with TAS is shielding the wrong person. I mean, yeah, it's his most significant cooldown. I can play with Tychus and Zarya. I don't know, Vasamasi. I don't know. You can ask Mokri. Oh, that's okay. We have lots of digressions on the stream. So Red Canids, this is where they're at as a team. They just don't do well at international events. There's actually no reason to expect them to take any games at all off the top teams, and they just don't really have the synergy as a team usually to pull off any really, really difficult execution-wise, which means they're limited to either being out-executed or being out-drafted because they have to draft a simpler style of composition. And we'll get to any teams. So that's a pretty easy win for Fnatic. Nothing super, super, super interesting there. Moving on to the next matchup, Tempo Storm versus Team Liquid. God, I hope Kala's still not in chat. So here's a funny thing. When did last win a game? At an international event? Never. I'm pretty sure they've never won a game in an international event. They win in their region, which again is not on Master League because it's hard to keep track of all the minor regions, and they don't have the replays available anyway. So Master League made the decision to just like, But yeah, they've never won a set. They've won individual maps off any teams. Oh, Call City had no audio. Lol. But it's been a while since they've won a game. And just they win in their region, go to the international events, and then get stomped. That's their cycle. So Tempo Storm. What do you say about Tempo Storm versus Team Liquid? So Tempo Storm and Team Liquid are both what I would call thinking teams. Team Liquid has better mechanical execution because they have players like Hasuabs, who is a former StarCraft 2 pro, and that obviously makes a really, where is Team Liquid? Tempo, Team L. There you go. Really, really big difference. Blumby, Darkmock, Nurok, these are all people that have been known for a long time for really good mechanical execution. Splendor, not so much. Splendor has always... Actually, Calder called him the most improved support, I think, of, was it 2016? 2000, because he played support since the beginning, but his cleanses and his timing were just bad for a professional player for a very long time. And he actually worked really, really hard at it. But Splendor's always been really thoughtful about the game, I want to say, in certain ways. And that's resulted in him being a very strong drafter. Sometimes not. It's not in some metas. Sometimes he doesn't adjust well to changes in the game because he's one of those people he's a refiner. If he knows how things work, he can cut away and polish and make really beautiful drafts. But anytime he gets thrown into new metas, new situations, which obviously happens quite frequently, and here's the Storm, he often has problems and starts to drop off a little bit, which means that going into an event like this, yes, that's exactly what Splendor's strength is. Although he's improved mechanically a lot. He put a lot of work into improving. Calder gave him the most improved support tag honorarily, and it was not inaccurate in any way, shape, or form. His mechanics have gotten significantly better. So going into an event like this, where there's been a recent patch, there have been no professional games outside of Bloodlust and community events like that on the patch. Obviously, there's been a lot of scrimming, but you don't know going into any international event what the meta is going to be because different regions have different metas. And compound that with the fact that Zul rework, minor changes in the previous patch. Stukov is entering into the Nexus, and how does Stukov affect draft priority? Is he only good in double support? Is he good as a soul support? Is he anti-dive? Is he really good against poke? Like, what is his role exactly? And these are questions that teams are trying to answer right now, scrimming ferociously, I have no doubt. But it's interesting how important boot camps are and how important style of play is to seeing who's going to come out on top. And, Stukov, there's a complaint today on Reddit, 47% win rate overall, when the Stukov bus coming. But, at a high level of play, professional players like Stukov is really, really good. Maybe not, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say Stukov's brokenly good. But in competitive play where you have really good positional awareness and you back up when you're low, and the sustain healing of Stukov really has a huge impact, especially on maps like Braxis Holdout, where the early game sustain is really, really valuable. So I'm hoping Team Liquid takes this first match seriously. Splendor has been known to be a little bit arrogant when it comes to underestimating. His response in the previous Clash interviews, when so Blizzard did a thing last Clash where they asked every team captain, what do you think about this team, and then they listed the responses. His response for both the minor region teams was literally shrug minor league team or minor region team. They actually asterisk shrug asterisk minor league team, right? Yeah, I think Swipe is good against dive comps. I don't think Shove is the only thing, but Shove is different. I think it's maybe even map and comp dependent, but shove is definitely a very interesting tool for teams to have, as is swipe. So and you're in that situation. So, if Splendor does not underestimate Tempo Storm at all, I think this series is going to primarily come down to drafts, because I think both teams have really good execution. I think both teams right now have decent synergy. I definitely know Tempo Storm is doing a lot of prep work for going into the Clash. And because they're both thinking teams, I think it's really going to come down to who thinks better. And that's going to be the kind of set that goes very back and forth. Because one team is going to do something, and the other team's going to be like, oh, I didn't think about that. And then they're going to do something, and it's going to go back and forth. I believe the Clashes are best of 3. So this is going to be a 2-1. This is absolutely going to be a 2-1 game. The question becomes a 2-1 in favor of who? It's going to be a 3-0 because EU versus NA. Boss is a little bit biased. I think this is going to be a 2-1. I don't think Tempo Storm has any interest in dropping down in the losers bracket. I'm going to give it to Team Liquid, though. I think it's, and I'll even be more specific, I think Liquid will win the first game, Tempo Storm will win the second game, and then Liquid will win the third game. Also, I don't know why I had that backwards. So it's 1, 2. I can edit this. I have this as 3-0. It only goes to 2. Oops. I don't think any team is interested in dropping in the losers bracket. Some teams have a strategy where they won't necessarily show strats, and they'll try and work their way through the quote-unquote weaker teams in the losers bracket. I don't think any teams are doing that this time around. And it's not so much that they want to drop down the losers bracket, it's that if they drop down the losers, they're not going to reveal strats unless they're in a matchup they don't think they can win otherwise, and they're in the losers bracket. But I don't. Getting stomped so hard you lose the next turn. But I will say Tempo Storm, I think, finally has some of the synergy going for them that they've been looking for. Tempo Storm's major problem over the last phase of HGC was that they swapped their tank player to Bruiser. And I think in the long term, I can understand why they did that, and it's going to be a significant improvement for them once they work out the kinks in communication, and they're going to have time to do that. First round was best of 3, and the last, and the rest was best of 5. Yeah, I mean, it's right there on the website. Like, I was looking at it. This is best of 3. These are best of 5s. I don't know why I did 3. I was like 100% aware. But it is what it is. So, moving on to GFE versus Nomiya. And straight up, I'm going to say this is the most volatile matchup in the first 4. This is by far the most volatile matchup in the first 4. Gale Force is a team that does occasionally cheese, and I'm okay with that. I think teams ought to cheese a good bit of the time. The rule in StarCraft, I think, was that if you never cheesed at all, people would always play. If you ever went up against equal skill players, they would beat you about half the time, right? Which is not great. So teams should cheese about 10% of the time. And in HGC, we've seen teams cheese like 0% of the time pretty consistently, which is not going to be. Nomiya has no problem doing one-trick comps. Zeratul Jaina is something they'll draft pretty much no matter what. They have a really good Zeratul player. Blow-up comps can always win. It doesn't matter how big the gap is between you and another team. If you kill them enough times with a blow-up comp, you can always win the game. That's just the way it is. Nomiya generally brings that idea to every international event they go to, and they do really well with it. They almost knocked out Liquid twice in a row, or 2 games. Like they won game 1 and almost knocked them out game 2. They literally would have won if they had a bad core call, hadn't had a bad core call, which would have resulted in a 2-0. However, their hero pool's somewhat limited. The heroes they do this with, particularly Zeratul, are pretty targetable in terms of who plays what. And that's not really the area you want to be in. They also have a clear preference for maps. in a lot of cases. They will go to the team fight maps or in the maps where they feel like they can excel doing those sorts of things. I don't know if they've changed it up at all. I actually did not get a chance to watch the qualifiers for Australia and New Zealand, and even if I did, the region is so imbalanced. Nomi is so far ahead of everyone else that they literally could have done that and not revealed anything and just played comfort heroes, comfort picks all the way up, and it wouldn't matter. Do blow-up comps require more practice? Blow-up comps require a lot of communication, and they require a lot of precision to remove counterplay. If you're even like a quarter of a second late on the ring, or I should say quarter second late on the cancel of VP when you're doing like a Jaina VP combo, the enemy team has a lot of things to misuse. We've seen players even accidentally give like a Tyrael enough time to sank. The Tyrael's in the VP, and he managed to sank the ring. Like, that's a half-second cast time, and even if he's spamming R, it's not really 100% ideal. Blow-up comps require a specific kind of practice, and it's all about team synergy and good communication. What you say about blow-up comps reminds me of why I love Rag so much. You always have the potential to come back into a losing game with a good soul first cast. It's absolutely true. Like, there's certain heroes that you always have comeback potential. The problem with Nomia is that, so here's the good and the bad. GFE often griefs in the late game. For some reason, GFE just throws in the late game a good portion of the time. If you go back and look at most of their losses in the second phase of HGC, you can attribute like more than half of them to straight up throwing the late game. Like, they were winning, all they had to do was crush out the game a little bit at a time, and they were guaranteed to win. And they like make a core call or get caught, and they just start staggering deaths, and they just lose the game. I don't know if that's a shot calling problem. I don't know if that's a attention span problem. They feel like they've won the game, so they stop trying as hard. I don't know what's going on with them. So, GFE, really, really clean early game. Nomia really likes to win blow-up comps, which is the kind of thing you can do to make a comeback in the late game. GFE tends to throw in the late game. So here's how and this is my prediction, not even just for match score. This is how my prediction for these matchups are going to go. Nomia is either going to completely lose the early game and get absolutely dominated, or they're going to lose the early game by just a little bit, not be too far behind, like no more than 2 levels, even talent tiers. And if they pick a game, it's going to be because GFE threw. But GFE won't do that 2 games in a row. No way. So this is like, I'm going to call this like 2 to 0.5, right? And you could literally flip a coin and pick up whether or not Nomi is going to take a map or not. I think that's where it's going to be. But I believe in GFE's ability to throw, just because they've been so consistent at it. So I'm going to put this as 2-1. 2-1. GFE Nomia. So Nomia will drop down to the losers bracket. I apologize to my org, but you guys threw a lot of late game matches lately. I'm sorry. Team Expert versus Team Freedom. This is crazy close. I mean, I have faith in them. It's just a different kind of faith. Team Expert versus Team Freedom, in my mind, is the closest of the preliminary matches. So we have the most one-sided by far at the top. We have the most thinking-oriented. This is the most draft-oriented. We have the most volatile because of the instability, right, of the teams and the way their play styles match up based on their current performance. And then we have Team Expert versus Team Freedom. They both have really solid mechanical execution. Team Expert has far better synergy. They've been playing with their roster for longer, and they have so many more hours put in to playing together. But I think Freedom has a slightly, and I mean this like in a very small way, a slightly better understanding of the macro game. Like a very small advantage. in terms of macro. That said, Team Expert has heroes that they are gods on. Freedom has a player who, in my mind, is a god on some heroes. Cure is very, very scary. Very scary. But, you know, Nasmus is relatively scary. Zugrug is a very good tank for an A. And you compare that to Expert. Expert has ADRD, who's considered one of the best players in the world on certain heroes. Bad Benny is, outshone in a lot of cases by other EU tanks, but EU arguably has the best tanks in the world right now. Right? Ethereal Angel is literally one of the best solo laners in the entire world. I would put him in the top 5 minimum, maybe the top 3. And here's the problem. Expert has synergy. Expert has more practice. And Expert arguably has one of the best drafters in the world, if not the best drafter in the world, in terms of considering all the potential angles of any given draft. And moving into an uncertain meta, that gives you a huge advantage. Expert was also one of the first teams to run Zool comps. And so any meta where Zool is viable, they understand Zool comps better than everyone else already. Right? Who would you rate as the top 5 solo laners? Rich. Rich, and then also Rich. Rich, Wubby, Ethereal Angel. I'm not sure the other 2 people would be on that list. The next 2 people on that list would be a really hard call. Zelia might be on that list. Antihero might be on that list. I've actually never seen Antihero lose a lane that is skill matchup based. I've seen him lose lanes he's not supposed to win, but I've never seen him lose a lane that's based on a skill matchup. So, are the individual players in EU considerably better than A, or is it just their understanding of the game ability? It's not that the EU players are individually better. That's actually not the case at all. The reason EU is ahead by so much is pressure. Their scene is so deep that they're continually improving by playing against each other, and they're always getting pushed up from below, right? A team that is amateur but in other reasons would be good enough to be in HGC is a regular thing in EU. And it allows them to just improve so much faster because their scene is so healthy at the top end. There's a lot of thought going into the game. They have coaches, which obviously helps a lot. Lots of big advantages to the EU region overall. And EU's always been that way. EU's always had the most depth of region. There was actually an interview recently with some of the Korean players, and they were like, why has Korea dropped off? And Korea's never had a very deep scene. It's always been just a couple of top teams. And they were like, well, we didn't practice as hard because we're making pretty much the same money regardless of whether or not we win. So at the very top end, when you're going for big prize pools, Koreans have just this ability to grit down and be the best, even though the people they're playing against are whatever. But EU's always had the most depth of region. And in the long run, unless you're extremely motivated just to practice because you love the game or you really want that big prize pool, which is what happened in Korea, the scene that has the deepest roster of really talented players is always going to end up being the most competitive. That's the way it works. We've seen this in other games. My example will always be chess. We saw this for a long time with Russian chess players. You'll have exceptional players that come out of nowhere in other regions because they have that personal love of the game and they push really hard. But for consistency, Russia has like the rest of the world beat, and it's absolutely insane. So in EU's case, EU has always been the most consistent region because it's always had the most depth of scene. EU's player base is probably close to 2 times bigger than an A, even in LoL's week loss. Yeah, but EU has more than 2 times the good players that NA does. It's not just that. Player base obviously is a big factor, but there's other factors. We won't get into that, but because of all that, I think this is going to be the closest matchup. I think Freedom could pull an upset. Like, they absolutely could pull an upset. But it's not the way you would bet if you were a betting man. So we're going to say 2-1. And Team Freedom gets knocked down into the loser's bracket. I'm sorry, Cure. I'm sorry, Zugrug. It feels bad because they're like, I mean, I talked to Cure, talked to Zugrug. I'm a big fan of Nasmus's Diva play and the fact that he's like the only pro player I know who really respects Nat Diva. So, we've now gone formatting, task diversion, team analysis of treatise on free market esports. Well, welcome to the stream. This is pretty standard for my stream. Lots of digressions. Anytime there's an interesting conversation, we can dive into it, and we'll come right on back to what we're doing after that. The interest has petered out. Our brackets were almost identical. Well, I mean, we haven't really done anything super interesting yet. So now we get to let's do the loser bracket first. We're gonna have Kneads versus Tempestorm. I don't think this is going to be close unless Tempestorm is very, very tilted for some reason. So we can just move on. I can reiterate the reasons for that if you guys are super interested. I don't think Nomiya can take a game off of Team Freedom, and here's the reason why. If Nomiya has anything cool, they're going to have revealed it in their set versus GFE, trying to not drop in the losers bracket. I don't think they want to push as far as they can, as hard as they can. They reasonably cannot expect to get to the finals. Like, they're not a team that can reasonably expect to do that unless miracles happen. They improve dramatically. So they just want to push as hard as they can every single time they come to an event. That's always sort of their mantra. So if they have anything clever prepared, they're going to show it versus GFE, and that'll give Team Freedom time to prep. And I don't think Team Freedom with prep can lose to Nomiya. I don't think it's possible. It's possible, but it's not likely. So that's another 2-0. Right? And in a moment, we're going to start to get to the point where my bracket could get very, very upset. It's possible. Because Fnatic versus Team Liquid is a really weird matchup. Fnatic in this meta should be able to win. Should be able to. You're saying it's not clownable? Everything's clownable. Feed ruins every strat. But the first losers bracket is still best of 3. From this point onward, these are all best of 5s. So draw an invisible line down the middle here. Everything on the right is best of 5s. Fnatic has slightly, in the last phase of HGC, been playing sort of passively. They have not been doing the same level of execution that they were doing, and they really just didn't feel the pressure, in my opinion. There was a definite difference in the cleanness of their execution. That said, this is a tournament, right? This is a tournament environment. I think Fnatic's going to show up and do their absolute best to just absolutely dominate all the way to the finish. And so the question is, does Fnatic engage in any sort of sloppy play? Do they misunderstand a draft? Do they get out-meted? And bear in mind, Team Liquid is a thinking team. Or does Fnatic just ban Vikings and win? Fnatic is also a team... Yeah, Skysim's making a really good point in chat. Fnatic is a team that is very, very global heavy, and it's a style they're comfortable playing with. Team Liquid can do a lot with Vikings, and globals are relatively good against Vikings. So I'm going to put this as 3-1 for Fnatic, but I think this could go to a 3-2, and in a very unlikely scenario, I think it could go to a 2-3. The games are going to be that close, but we're gonna lock it in at 3-1. Primarily because I don't think that there's enough maps in the map pool where Team Liquid has a distinct advantage, and I'm pretty sure Fnatic can take one of Team Liquid maps away from them. So that means that they should win. If they lose the first match, they should win the next two, and then they'll be in good shape. So 3-1, 3-2. Let's call it 3-1.5, but I flipped the coin the other direction this time. GFE versus Team Expert. So GFE has a lot of really interesting and sort of fun drafts, in my opinion. They are one of the best teams in terms of drafting NNA, but they make a lot of really weird decisions in their drafts. And we can see, like, even in Bloodlust, there's an argument here that they were hiding strats. But picking Zool on Battlefield of Eternity, it's not that Zool's not good on Battlefield of Eternity. You can argue that Zool is really good against the comp that Roll20 had drafted. But Zool's not really great on Battlefield of Eternity. It's just the way it is. So I feel like Gale Force Esports can be outdrafted. And despite the fact that GFE does occasionally cheese, I feel like Team Expert has tried all the cheeses in the world and knows how to respond to them and knows how to bring them out themselves. And I don't think GFE responds to cheese as well as Expert responds to cheese, because I think GFE is used to being the cheese team in North America, and no one else really does it, which, again, teams should cheese more. That should definitely be a thing that happens. They should run hard to deal with strats, where the execution is simple for them, but the response is very hard for the enemy team. And because of those scenarios, this is a 3-1. Thank you for the cheer. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Bukev. I appreciate that. GFE is going to clown at least one draft. GFE is going to throw at least one game. Wasn't Superstars the NHE's team? Superstars had their own meta, right? Superstars wasn't intentionally trying to cheese. They just they legitimately thought certain things were better, and what they thought was better differed from what other people thought was better. Expert legitimately said, if we think we're the worst team, we will cheese. Yeah, that's how you should do it. Does Team Liquid drop a game to TS due to a DC? Team Liquid drops a game to Tempo Storm because you can go back and watch the VOD, but they're both thinking teams. And when you're up against a thinking team, you can do situations where the win one, lose one, win one situation is very, very common. So I think Team Liquid will take game 1, Tempo Storm will take game 2, and Liquid will take game 3. That was like a 2 versus 0.75 for me, so I rounded up. That was what happened. But again, I think GFE can cheese one match, and then they're going to lose 3. GFE takes one game in that scenario. I predict GFE Cho'Gall and GFE versus Expert. It seems fair. So I'm really scared about my next predictions, guys. I'm very terrified because this is getting significantly harder. Like, these were actually not difficult predictions because I feel like the way the seeding worked out, the gaps and the propensities of each team gave really clear advantages in each set. But don't eliminate freedom, please. Anyway, GFE versus Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm, because they're a very, very thoughtful team, is, again, a team that I don't think deals incredibly well with cheesy comps. GFE is willing to cheese. I'm not sure if they will cheese at this point in the event. Losers bracket, maybe they'll give up, on cheesing. Maybe they'll just play straight up the entire time. If Tempo Storm synergy improves, this is going to be a close series, and I do think GFE takes it. In this case, I think GFE takes it because I think that they're going to get over their mental block versus Tempo Storm. I think with the new players coming in, I think with the shakeups that K1 and CAF bring to their mindset, and the fact that they have a lot of players who are really good at grinding. They're really good at having a pre-event improvement in many ways. It's not been consistent for them, but I think that was because of their rosters. So I'm going to call this 3-2 for GFE. I do think the series is going to be that close, but I do think it's going to be 3-2 for GFE. And Team Liquid versus Team Freedom. And again, here's where we come in to the drafting problem. Drafting is so incredibly important in Heroes of the Storm. And Freedom upped their drafting game significantly by adding Cure, both because Cure has a really solid handle on drafting, and his hero pool allows different compositions to be drafted. But Liquid is one of the best teams in the world at drafting, especially when they can have time to refine their drafting. So this is, multiple matches in. The meta of this tournament will have started to be established. Splendor can look at that, look at what Freedom was trying to do, look at what heroes are performing, and if Splendor sits down and really puts his experience with drafting and his expertise, I don't think Freedom can win anything more than one draft, which means that Liquid has to throw a game in order for Freedom to do anything better than 3-1. Or Cure has to literally dumpster the entire team in a team fight just by out-mechanicking them, which, if this were an A, I would say he could do in at least one game, and it would go 3-2. But this isn't an A. This is a U. Liquid seems to lose more games when they lose draft than any other team. Yes, because Splendor's fragile in the way he drafts comps and the way he shot calls. If he doesn't have exactly the tools he wanted, he's not good at thinking on the fly. And I say this as someone who has the exact same problem, for the record. I have this exact same problem. If I don't get all the tools I really want in a draft, I'm with a comp that just, or if I have a comp that just sucks, I can make the best compromise call, but I have to think about it. It's not instant. And I think Splendor has the same problem. If he gets the exact comp he wants, he already has a plan 20 minutes long in his head. But if he gets something else, he has to it doesn't work out. We must trust in Freedom. I mean, I'm not putting him at 3-0. That's I apologize, but I think Team Liquid's going to take it 3-1. I really, really do. And it's not an insult to Splendor. I actually think it's really impressive that you can, if you have the teams think out that long. But I have the exact same problem, and it's just sometimes it sucks, sometimes it doesn't. Fnatic versus Expert. If Expert can cheese twice and win, this is going to be a 2-3 in favor of Expert. I have Canids undefeated throughout the entire tournament. If Team Expert cheeses and fails even once, this is a 3-1. So the question is, how good is cheese in Heroes of the Storm? How good is cheese in Heroes of the Storm? That's the real question. And it comes down to maps. If Fnatic makes the mistake of picking a cheesable map when they have map pick, then Expert is going to be able to do a lot of damage. If Fnatic sticks to maps that are hard to cheese, Expert has no chance. So I'm going to call this 3-1 because I don't think Expert can blind... Yeah, exactly. I don't think Expert can blindside Fnatic that much. But they're going to try. And if this bracket is correct, straight up, if this bracket ends up being what actually ends up happening, this is going to be my favorite match of the series. By far, favorite match of the series. GFE versus Liquid. This is at a point in the game where the meta is established. Unless Splendor makes a mistake in the draft, I don't think GFE can even take a game. And I don't think Splendor's going to make that mistake. So I really respect Splendor as a drafter. And he's going to be very, very happy. Expert? So here we run into the most innovative drafter. Are coaches allowed in comms and drafting at lands? I actually don't know the answer to that question. I could ask Milkfat. Yeah, he would know. Or I could ask I don't know who else I could ask. Esports Matt, I could ask. I don't actually know. I know if you look at the official HGC rules, the coach position is allowed to be in comms between games and during draft, but not during the actual match. So I would assume it works that way for lands, because it would be weird to have inconsistent rules between the league format and the not league format. But I don't know for a fact one way or the other. Man, Team Expert versus Team Liquid. This bracket actually happens this way. This is going to be the hardest match to call because the meta of the tournament is established at this point, right? There's, at most 11 games left. At most 11 games are left in this entire tournament. It's just pretty unlikely. Hey, Mania. Welcome to the stream. So, is that enough information for Splendor to always get the tools he needs in a draft, such that Liquid will always have the things they want? Or does Expert pull out something wonky that works specifically against what they expect Team Liquid to think is the meta? Because Liquid's a team where if they lose in the draft, we talked about this earlier, they tend to be very, very easily dealt with. It's a very difficult question. I think it's close enough that this series is going to be 3-2 no matter who wins. So I'm almost about to engage in flippism and just flip a coin to see who goes. I'm not going to do it, though. I'm not going to flip a coin. Although I did do that once for I flipped a coin for the Heroes of the Dorm bracket for every single matchup. Tuvix, thank you for the sub. And my Heroes of the Dorm bracket was in like the top 1,000, so flipping a coin is pretty good. How's Australia, New Zealand with Americas when Australia, New Zealand is closer to Asia in time? I mean, most of the teams are flying in early enough that they can adjust. Also, I don't think any of the teams are going to have a problem with that. In most cases, this is not their first international event, so they know how to deal with jet lag and how much it affects them. I think early in tourney Expert would win, but late in tourney with meta established and Expert cheese shown versus Fnatic Liquid would win. It's very close. Secret here is the Dorm strats. Choose your own team to lose and throw. That won't help you get all the way to the... You need to predict the winner, though. That's the important thing. Not that predicting the winner in the last Heroes of the Dorm was very difficult. I'm going to give this to Expert. I'm going to give this to Expert purely because the amount of time they've been putting in the last few weeks is insane. And they literally made a roster change because they had one player who just didn't want to put in the same level of dedication that they did. So Fnatic gets one game for free. I believe they're keeping that rule as the team that came in. And this is now a best of 7. So Fnatic needs to win 3 games to take it home. Expert needs to win 4. This looks like my NCAA bracket every year. I'm not picking the number 1 seeds, though. Am I? Because I think Expert was seeded over Liquid. Freedom was seeded over GFE, and GFE got farther. Oh, no, GFE was number 1 seed for NA because of head-to-head. At this point, Expert will probably be out of memes, and it'll be 3-1 again. I don't think so. So, Expert is a team that, if they think they're the worst team, will pull things. And you have not seen the depths of cheese that is possible in Heroes of the Storm in competitive yet. We haven't seen it. We've seen it occasionally. We've seen it here. We've seen it there. We've seen like one Vikings comp with no tank. You know, it's just push with Zarya. And we've seen triple backline to counter Mathael. Like, really, really weird things. No team in the world can take 4 games off Fnatic right now. Depths of cheese. That's a good big band name. I'm gonna say this is 4-3. I'm gonna say this is 4-3 to Fnatic. They need to win 3 games, but I think Expert can take it. This is a fake bracket. We're doing, so I do a lot of predictions off stream, and I'm doing an on-screen prediction. This is my bracket for Western Clash. Liquid has no chance of beating Tempo. Interesting. Wait, Schwimpy can't go? Is this true? I hadn't heard this. I had not heard this. Is Schwimpy not going to Western Clash and Mene's going in as a sub? Expert has no chance of taking more than 1 game. That's interesting. This is my prediction. I'm happy with it. I could be wrong. Obviously, being wrong on LNF Zad, thank you for the sub. Appreciate that a lot. But I'm happy with it. And obviously, you know, if you make a misprediction early on, brackets can get all sorts of wonky. If Nomia somehow manages to beat GFE, then my bracket is just totally crazy. If, you know, Tempo Storm manages to 2-0 Liquid, something like that, gonna be in a lot of trouble. Fnatic can't play the sub. That's... My mid-season Brawl prediction was Fnatic. I did think it would be Fnatic versus MBB Black in the finals. But basically, as soon as I was told that there were people who were quitting post-Brawl, I was like, well, they're not going to try very hard. So, like, going in, I was like, L5 will probably take it. And then as soon as I heard Noblesse was quitting after the fact, I said, well, Fnatic will probably be the one to take the thing home. So that was my mid-season Brawl prediction, which turned out to be half correct, right? I got the winner correct, but I got who they were playing wrong. It ended up being Dignitas. I will screenshot this. I don't really understand not trying for your last tournament because they didn't really care about the prize pool. That was the thing. Like, the only thing they win for winning the tournament is a little bit more money. And their plan was basically to move into a game where they were going to be making more money. And in their mind was also more competitive. So it was, I don't know. It was bittersweet. I think at that point they were also a little bit resentful of Heroes of the Storm, because of the changes they made were great for the rest of the world. But it really impacted the way Koreans like to play the game, where it's all or nothing. Nice, good call. Do you still Educational Scrims? Educational Scrims have been dead for a while. We actually would have had them if GFE hadn't qualified for Western Clash, because some of the guys from GFE would have been free to do it, and they did volunteer. So, but educational scrims will eventually make a comeback. But I've been way too busy, and I'm actually really rusty at shot calling and even just playing the game because I've been doing a lot of game analysis like this. Noblesse didn't quit. He got drafted in the military. Who was it that quit? Meride? The point is they had a lot of players who were just like, meh. And Noblesse and I'm pretty sure Noblesse moved to another game. He moved to one of the weird mobile MOBAs that's getting really popular, and the streaming income and the tournament income are both higher. So, I mean, it wasn't. It was actually HGC is the thing that killed them, right? Because everyone who was volunteering to captain was basically a professional player, and they wanted to watch HGC live, or they were in HGC live, and then it affected stream numbers. So some people who were doing captains because it gave them really good stream numbers, obviously because it was highly educational content, it was super, super interesting. We're like, well, I don't want to compete with HGC. But then we looked at doing it not on the weekends, and teams scrim during the most active period on the weekdays for most users. So they actually, we couldn't find a compromise where there was a time slot that worked for captains and the people who would be playing. So it was just like schedules. And is there only tournaments in China for this crap? I would say only China, but yeah. So ES will exist in off seasons, if at all. That's just the way it's going to have to work, unfortunately. Yeah, I would basically need like high tier amateur captains, and again, at this point, I would need 2 of them, and I would just like be an admin because I've been doing so much analysis and other things off stream that I haven't actually been playing Heroes of the Storm enough, and my mechanics are way bad right now, and it's hard to shot call when you have to think about your mechanics, because then you're thinking about 2 things. It really your mechanics have to be automatic to be a good shot caller, because you need to be thinking about everything else. Mania Noblesse tweeted that himself. Like that info is coming from Noblesse. And I think Zembar was actually at Midseason Brawl and did interviews there. So play Tacit every game, easy shot calling life. I can't shot call properly when I'm not on melees, can confirm. Yeah, see, it's hard. Couldn't you get amateur teams from HGC Open to captain? It could. The problem with that is that in order to be a really good shot caller, you need to have a really good awareness of everything that's going on in a match, and not every player is a good shot caller. Like I asked Crone if he would be interested at one point, and he said he wasn't entirely comfortable shot calling, even in like a competitive setting, much less for amateurs. So to have these players, they would have to be comfortable teaching. We've had players who were comfortable shot calling, but then were not very educational because they were kind of toxic towards the people who made mistakes. So you have to be patient, knowledgeable, really good shot calling. I think McIntyre shot calls on Hold It Down, I believe. You'll have noticed a little bit of a difference in their play style when McIntyre was not there. What does an NA have to do to not be a LOL anymore? Who is the closest to doing it? I think Team Freedom's the closest to doing it, because people are always going to be a little bit ha ha ha, you won by cheese at GFE. But what it comes down to is they need to take practices seriously, and this is a self-confessed difference. When NA teams went to BlizzCon last year, they scrimmed against the Korean teams, and sometimes they would goof off, and the Koreans would be like, "Please don't do that." And it was just such a difference. A lot of the people didn't realize exactly how seriously Koreans took just scrims, and they scrimmed against the EU teams, and it was similar, not exactly the same. EU teams are a little bit more relaxed, but NA needs to be a lot more serious. It needs to focus a lot more on macro and drafting, and it needs to focus on team synergy far more than individual players. And it's been the same problem NA has always had, honestly. It's gradually getting better. It could get better a lot faster if they actually admitted that these were the problems and focused on those things exclusively, as opposed to focusing on, just trying to get quote unquote better and having gradual progress in all areas, but nothing like really, really amazing. I can't shock all properly when solo laning. Yeah, that's also very difficult. You need a rotation caller actually in the rotation. I've actually never seen a shot caller do extremely well from the solo lane. Some exceptions. And it needs coaches, needs non-HGCs to get better at actually understanding the game. Yeah, that's true. NA would be better if the top end of ladder were better. It's also true. If NA had coaches who were calling them on these things, that would also be good. Like, I would put Tempo Storm much higher in this tournament because they have a coach if they hadn't had a role swap that they're struggling to make work. Because I really do think having a coach is that important. But having the role swap has been really, really rough for them. So would you say Udall is the primary solo laner and shot caller for GFE isn't a good idea? I wouldn't. It's one of those things where, and I can't imagine what. And Udall said this to me. What he says as his style for shot calling the laning arrangements is he outlines the plan for the early game, and then he actually lets someone else, either Fan or Calf, call the tactical part of the laning. During like the early game laning arrangements, and then he takes over as the strategic shot caller and tactical shot caller in team fights in the very, very late game. So he'll outline the initial plan, be like, this is what we're doing with the comp we have against their comp, and if he has to be split into the solo lane, someone else will be the tactical shot caller during that 4-man, and then someone will swap out. But he's always the strategic shot caller, if that makes sense. Be honest, Cav, if GFE took you on as a coach, do you think that by the end of the phase, GFE would be the best team, in your opinion? If GFE took me on as a coach, and the team was willing to listen to me, and I could convince them of the mindset that failure is really good, just a really good learning opportunity, which it is, I would say that they would be the best team by results by the end of HGC in NA. Yes. I absolutely believe I have the capability of doing that for a team. My team has only changed 2 people since February for outside of game reasons, and we focus mostly on team movement, communication, drafting, and synergy. We've gone from a random bottom tier team in the HGC Open to one of the better teams in the HGC Open. Yes! Yes! It's absolutely true. It's so important. I don't know why people don't believe me. What role would be the most ideal for a shot caller to play? In general, support or tank. The advantage of support is you have a better awareness of cooldowns and team health. The advantage of tank is that the split second when an initiation is perfect, everyone's used to following you, and you just call the initiation and you're good. Those are the ideal. Solo laner is the worst position for the shot caller, by far. And range is okay. It has some problems. This unfortunately, but if you do have your shot caller or your support, or you have your tank or your support shot calling, it puts a lot of pressure on them, because that's already a very difficult and important role in competitive. GFE is already number 1 in NA. Yeah, but it was close. I would make it not close. Vainglory tournaments. Shot call from range is fine if you're a Medivh main. As Glowering has proven, yes. But even you can see it even in Glowering, right? Glowering shot calling style, if you listen to the scrims they did with Dyrus, is so aggressive and micromanagey. But the reality is that if he wasn't aggressive and micromanagey, they would not be able to pull off those synergy things. They just wouldn't be able to do it. Because the timing windows are so small that you can miss them if you're not actually playing like the tank position you're initiating. But Justing, like, here's Glaurung say go, and he just goes, and the timing is really, really good. So isn't the benefit of range damage being DPS not pulling them under as much pressure as support or tank would be shot calling? I mean, it is a benefit, but the range just has to consider different things, and they're not already in their mind. I think that there would be an advantage macro-wise to having your range be your like rotational shot caller. I know an amateur team with an even more micromanaging style, it seems pretty bad. I mean, if it works, it works. There are players who are really good mechanically and will never do things if you don't tell them to do them. But they're really comfortable doing anything you tell them to do them, and they'll do it instantly. They just listen really, really well. Yeah, King's Fool's on 7th Empire. If Roll20 was to make one roster change next time, do you think it'd be better Goku or Prismat? I mean, I think Prismat has performed very well in Roll20. He's gotten kicked from every other team he's been on for lack of communication and lack of listening to calls, which I guess isn't a problem on Roll20. Maybe he respects Glaurung more. Maybe they're better friends. I don't know. So if Goku is causing roster or hero pool problems, then obviously getting rid of Goku would help them a lot. It depends on who they pick up, because they could have the same problem over again. That said, at the Bloodlust tournament, I think they've sort of started to work out their hero pool issues. And in that case, I don't know if they could get a strict upgrade based on the amount of time it takes to create synergy as a team. I think anyone who makes a roster swap in the next rotation where you're allowed to make swaps is running the very huge risk of not being able to get to BlizzCon because they are not going to do well enough in HGC. So don't kick anyone, is what I'm saying. I legitimately, unless someone is just like dies or straight up quits the game and there's nothing you can do about it, I don't think any team that makes a roster swap the next rotation is going to be able to get to BlizzCon. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. That's the stream. That is the pre-Clash prediction. We'll see if I'm right or not. I'm actually very excited. Might even do I'm definitely going to do a post-Clash stream. What if every team roster swaps? Well, then it's like everyone broke a leg, you know? Everyone's healing at the same rate. It's a little bit different. If there's any last-minute questions, I'll be happy to take them. But that's my evaluation of the teams. I was thinking about how to do this in a fun way, and I thought having a bracket prediction would be a fun way to talk about the teams. You want to hear the story I was referring to? So early on in Educational Scrims, we had a game, and I didn't look at people's ranks when I did Educational Scrims, because I was like, everyone's here to learn, it doesn't matter win or lose. So I just had people on teams. Teams we ended up with on Cursed Hollow were myself and 4 silver players versus Handlebars, who, as many of you know, was a coach for a while and is active in the competitive scene, and 4 diamond players. That was the matchup. We won that game. It was not easy. It was just not easy. We actually ended up winning it off of, I was playing Tyrael. We won it off a couple of really clutch boss steals and 2 really clutch Sanks. But we also won it because the silver players did exactly what I told them to do without asking. And my favorite example of this, and I know Boo wants me to tell this story, was at the 2-minute mark, Siege spawns. We had a Greymane. And I said, Greymane, go grab Siege. And he went to grab Siege. 25 seconds later, Siege gets capped, and the Greymane player says, I didn't know Greymane could solo camps. So he went to the camp, did the camp, because I told him to. He just did it without asking any questions at all. Just went and did the camp. Didn't know that Greymane could solo camps. I think he thought I was going to send someone to help him or something, and I was just rotating him there to but no, he didn't know. And that entire game was like that. That entire game Was everyone listening and doing exactly as they're told the best they could? Obviously, they fell down sometimes. But they just followed the calls, and we ended up winning the game. Unfortunately, the VOD is long gone. I don't think any of the educational scrim VODs are still alive, except for the ones that Sray uploaded to his YouTube channel, which are pretty good. If you actually want to see what educational scrims is like, you should definitely go check those out. But where do I think Stukov's place in the meta is? I think Stukov's a really good anti-dive hero. I think Stukov may replace Brightwing as the best anti-dive support, because both of his heroics are really good at dealing with dive heroes. And dive comps want to come in on someone who's low, and I think his sustain is good enough that that's not a possibility. I also think because of his damage levels, he'll excel in double support comps, because you can just punish people with the amount of damage that he offers, even though he offers no CC. Do you think, or well, he does offer slows, but I mean like hard CC. Do you think Genji will be heavily prioritized the Clash? Genji will be prioritized the Clash, and the teams that over-prioritize him will lose. I'm comfortable saying that. I heard you talk about Naz and D.Va earlier, like drafting her a lot of the time and use her similar to Naz as well, but I find her much harder to draft Justify since the wave clear plus Asian years. Any tips, thoughts on whether to draft D.Va outside of team fight and point control situations? D.Va's a hero you have to be really good at to play at a really high level. I actually think solo tank D.Va comps are really viable, especially on Infernal Shrines, Dragonshire, and Cursed Hollow. But the Wave Flare because HP nerfs nerfed her solo lane matchups a lot, which basically means you have to draft her in a situation where you're in the 4-man to the 3-man, like you're skirmishing with her, not in a 1v1. And that limits her quite a bit. Brightwing place. I mean, Brightwing still has global, right? So there's that, and her buff also, puts her in a slightly different position. Brightwing is reactive to burst though. Stukov can just deal with it, but his cooldown for it is longer. It's pretty close. Brightwing has the global. Brightwing's never gonna lose the global. And as long as you have a global, and as long as double support is a thing. Brightwing also has poly. Point and click CC, point and click silence is a really, really big deal. Stukov is anti-dive with his heroics. Brightwing's anti-dive with one of her basic abilities and her heroic. Weird niche hero most likely to see play at Clash. I'm going to say Liquid with Vikings. I think that Liquid should lean heavily on how good their Vikings is to give them an advantage in every single draft, because teams will feel forced to ban it or draft around it even if they don't pick it. I think we might see Nova. I'm not going to say from which team, but I think we might see Nova. More support should play their support like an assassin more often, in my opinion. I mean, in competitive, it's a little bit different. Someone did an analysis of Rhaegar's win rate based on the amount of damage that he did. The lower Rhaegar's hero damage is, the higher his win rate becomes. Rhaegars who don't play aggressively win more. Whether because they're not dying or because they're focused on healing, you can make arguments, but Rhaegars who heal more and do less damage win more. It's just the way it is. In competitive, it's a little bit different because you can reliably have peel if you go in as a support to help finish off a kill, or get some free bite damage. So you wouldn't go in unless the peel was there. And I think that in a lot of supports' case, they have enough damage that it's worth going in to do it against the right comp, under the right cooldowns, in the right situations. And I don't think any of the GFE Akaface is probably the most passive top support player in that sense. Akaface never really steps up for his team to make plays. He just does everything in the backline perfectly. And I think if he were a little bit more aggressive, GFE would actually be a much better team all of a sudden. Do you think we see Cho'Gall Ariel comp in Western Clash after seeing? Yes. I think we're going to see Cho'Gall Ariel considered in the draft, at least. To the point where I expect to see Cho'Gall bans. And if he does get through, I expect him to have to be picked in the 2-3 slot. Or the 3-4 slot. I don't think a first pick Ariel is going to allow a 4-5 Cho'Gall pick. At least on the maps where he's considered to be good. Although There are Cho'Gall mains who say Cho'Gall doesn't have any bad maps. Kenma, best playmaking support. Any other questions? Do you think Cho'Gall is going to end up being the Tyrael of BlizzCon this year? Ooh. No, I think Tyrael is going to end up being the Tyrael of BlizzCon this year, just like he is every year. Turns out Tyrael's pretty good. Tyrael is so ridiculous. I don't. When teams are really like going all out, Tyrael ends up being so incredibly insane. Can you imagine Tyrael as the offlaner for a Cho'Gall comp? That'd actually be pretty interesting. So you have Tyrael, Cho'Gall, Ariel. Who's your ranged? Medivh. No, probably not. What you need to do is deport the Cho'Gall and abuse the 5v3. Yeah, that's you counter Cho'Gall by not countering Cho'Gall. You counter Cho'Gall by killing all his support. And you either do that by getting rid of the Cho'Gall, which is something Shove is really good at. Do you think Black sleeps their way through the Clash, or will they be challenged? I don't see a team beating Rich at Eastern Clash. I will actually do a pre-stream for Eastern Clash as well, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I'm going to say it right now. I think MV Black just like steamrolls all the way to the finals. Didn't some Korean team play Medivh, Ariel, Cho'Gall? Yes. Yes, they did. Haymaker, Muradin. I'm saying big knockbacks, guys, are a really good way. Like Cocoon, Haymaker, Massive Shove, Gorge. Anything you can do to force a fast fight against the Cho'Gall comp as a 5v3. Just, like, those are the... CC is the best counter to Cho'Gall right now. Whether it's knocking him away or just locking him down. I've run Haymaker Muradin as a Cho'Gall counter. Actually, back in the day, tried out Haymaker Muradin as a Tyrael counter. People would go all in on dive comps with Tyrael, and I would knock the Tyrael away before he could sank, and then the dive would die. Seems pretty good. That was before Muradin's health got nerfed a little bit. He could pretty much survive on his own without Avatar. If they keep buffing his Faith health, he might just run Haymaker Muradin in general. Maybe. So just go Stukov, Stitches, and Ubrak Muradin. It's like you don't even face an enemy team. I want to see that game now. Yeah, Boo uses my strats against me whenever I play him. That's not annoying at all, by the way. So we did an ES once. I'm going to tell this story. We did an ES once. We were on Infernal Shrines, and we were late to the shrine rotation. So I was just like, okay, we just got to go through this bush. Boo was in the fucking bush, and he dismounted all of us on Johanna and then walked away. And I was like, God damn it, I should never have taught Boo to tank. Still one of my favorite memories from ES. Still remember that. Haymaker Muradin is strong Diva counter. My team practiced running this on Brax a bit after Diva came out. Oh, that makes sense. Thoughts on Tehran? I still don't think Tehran is good and competitive. I could be wrong. Tehran is borderline in my opinion. She's so good at high levels of Hero League because mechanically you have these players who can just outduel basically anyone with her. But in competitive, you don't really have a whole lot of dueling except in the soul, and she's on a soul laner, so like I don't think Tyrande is good enough in competitive. I'm willing to be wrong. If there are teams that are practicing her, and I don't know if there are any personally, and they think they can use mechanics to just make her good even at that competitive level, then I'll be very, very impressed. How bad of a nerf is Butcher's change on competitive? I talked about this yesterday. I actually am not sure that the changes to Butcher are anything but a side grade or a buff. I don't think there's any change to Butcher that is strictly a nerf at any level of play. At Clown levels of play, it's a straight buff. Like anything Diamond and below, straight buff, no question. Masters and competitive, maybe a side grade because it changes his laning arrangements. But I don't think it's a downside or like a loss at all. And I think in highly competitive environments, you can usually secure enough kills that you're gonna be able to finish the quest relatively early, especially since Butcher can trade, which is one of the important things to recognize. If a Butcher dies but trades 1-for-1, he's up 15 meat. That's a big advantage for him. You throw the mech away and get a free kill on Diva since she is stunned and chunked from the Haymaker. It's dumb how good it is, lol. Does the Butcher change just make him not so focused on laning but more on getting picks? Yes. The Butcher is not going to be 9 minutes AFK laning. The 10 less AA damage is a nerf. Kind of, but you get a level 1 talent for free. Right? Because Abattoir was removed, but the benefit of Abattoir, or at least the huge perk of Abattoir once you finish your stack is there, and you get a level 1 talent. I would trade 10 damage on my auto attack on any hero in the game to be able to take another level 1 talent. How do you play against Butcher? The correct way to play against new Butcher is not to die. Literally the only counterplay to new Butcher is really just don't die. You can say don't be out of position, but that's another way of saying don't die, right? Just don't die. Even Tracer? I get Pulse Strike and Tracer rounds. I might take that. I consider Tracer a burst hero, so her auto attack doesn't really mean much to me. Butcher confirmed the new god of HL. I don't know if you guys have looked at Butcher's win rate in HL lately, but it's like always in the top 5 in every league. So Butcher's always been the god of HL. People just didn't know it. Immolation, Battered Assault, overpowered. Yeah, I really legitimately don't think there's a hero that I wouldn't trade 10 damage on. Maybe Tracer's a ridiculous... Tracer's the most ridiculous one, right? She has the fastest attack speed. And her level 1 talents are not super impactful. So maybe Tracer's an exception. Good call, boo. But I don't think anything else. First ban Butcher. I mean, it just depends on what league you're in. It depends on how confident you are against playing against him. Abathur. I mean, I would definitely trade 10 attack. My slaps can hit for less if I get another level 1 talent. That's fine. I would trade all of Abathur's attack damage. I would trade that out. I would trade 40 of Abathur's attack damage for 4 additional talents. Right? What is his auto attack? Like 70? I would trade all 70 points of his auto attack for for more talents. It would actually be Abathur with multiple talents would actually be pretty. It's 36 at level 1. It's 26 at level 1. I don't know why I'm thinking of his level 20 number. I have a lot of heroes level 20 numbers memorized. It's 57, 20. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Tassadar. But I'm thinking of his... I'm thinking of his DPS. That's what I was thinking of. It's 81 DPS. 81 DPS, 57 damage. I have a lot of the level 20 numbers memorized. But not the level 1 numbers. It's kind of funny. Slap skills are an important tool of psychological warfare. I've actually never slap killed anyone as Abathur. I have like over 500 games on Abathur across all my accounts. I've never slap killed anyone as Abathur. I've killed people with locusts. Like I burrowed in and dropped locusts on them and then, slugged away. But I've never slap killed anyone as Abathur. I have slapped people as Abathur, but never for a kill. When are we getting Cav Slaw? I have not found an emote artist yet. And I apologize for that. I just haven't had time to find him. Cav is too polite on Abathur? I mean, if I thought I could kill someone by slapping them, I would have done it. I already made you Cav Sloth, though. I'm not sure that will get approved. That's the problem, boo. I was looking at the things, and copying emotes and then modifying them is not kosher with Twitch. You have no subs for 2 emotes, right? I do not know. I think I get a sub icon regardless, and then I have an emote. So I need to have at least 2 things made, potentially 3. Again, if anyone knows an artist who does emotes, feel free to refer them to me. For some reason, I just haven't been able to find one. I don't know where the cutoff is, Boo. It's something I haven't looked into extensively yet, because I haven't found an artist, so I've just been like... I get in contact with the Russian troll, and feeder who may or may not make emotes within the next galactic cycle. Someone who's, like, reliable would be good. If you copy an emote, you need permission to modify it. If you get consent, it's okay. Oh. I guess Sloth is a Twitch emote, right? So I can just ask Twitch if it's okay. They probably have an apartment for that. I will look into that. This week, I promise, I will look into getting an artist. I will set aside like a 2-hour or 3-hour block of time and do all the research and everything else I need to do. I've just been crazy busy. My wife's been away at a retreat for her work for 4 days, and I've been using that time to work on some surprises for her. So my personal life took a little bit of a priority for a few days. Like, I know an emote artist, but he's a literal sloth. Well, alright. Thank you all for watching. That'll be the stream for the day. I'll let you guys know what the surprise is after, if it goes well. If it doesn't go well, then I'm not going to tell you what it was. But thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for everyone who subbed today. It means a lot to me, honestly. I would like to be able to transition into doing this full-time. One of the reasons that I would be such a good thing to be a coach for me is obviously that I could focus on HOTS exclusively. And hopefully my bracket ends up being at least close to correct. No early match upsets. I think Freedom... Like, this is the closest match in level 1, in my opinion. So if Freedom wins this, then this whole bracket is just wonky. But we'll see. Remember, this is a stream where we never lose. We always win. We learn something. Learning is always a win. So I won't be too upset if my bracket is incorrect. And I will see you all later. Thanks, everyone.